I really want to hit three main topics. The first one I want to start with is just the rioting and the looting and my take and my perspective on it. And I've found that the way my brain works is if I can take a very complex situation and try to put a very easy to think about analogy to it, it really kind of helps me process and understand things. So I want to preface that when I say this, like, I don't want it to be like, oh, this is what you mean, but I'm just going to talk. So I look at the fires and the rioting and the looting and things like that as a very, I don't want to say calculated, but a tantrum. And I don't want people to be like, what do you mean a tantrum? That's not what I mean. What I mean is, for the sake of the analogy, I look at it as a tantrum. And when I think about it in the simplest form. I think about it as though I was a child, right? And I think about what I used to do or what I see children do when they're trying to get the attention of a parent, a mom. I'll use a mom in this particular situation. Is it typically starts off pretty calm, right? There's kind of that joke of like the mom, mommy, right? And that's kind of how it is. And I think of that as people of color in general, or people who are trying to point attention at injustice in general, are doing that and have been doing that for many, many, many years before any of this has ever even happened. Where people are going, mom, mommy. And then I think of like, what is the next natural progression for a child? They get a little bit upset. They start to get frustrated, right? They kind of start to get a little angry. They get annoyed. And that mom gets more passionate and has more behind it. And we've all been guilty of it, where like we still don't look. We're just like, yep, okay, I hear you. You don't really hear. You don't really see. And then ultimately, what's the final step? The tantrum, right? That child, yourself included, your children, if you have them, there's the toy, there's the floor, boom. That's what's going to happen. And that, to me, is the simplest way that I can think about it. There's been too long, the mom, mommy, the anger, the frustration, I'm not being heard, I'm not being recognized, I'm not being seen. And unfortunately, we live in a day and age in a society where the easiest way to get the attention, the right attention, is through anger, frustration, and ultimately the tantrum, right? So that's kind of how I've wrapped my head around it. Now, a lot of people have asked me, like, would you do that? Are you kind of that person? No, I'm not one to loot, riot, or do things like that. But that doesn't mean that the people down there were the ones to do that, right? There's a select few people, and that's their God-given right to articulate and express themselves in the way that they feel that they need to. And I think that we have to recognize that as human beings, that we can't be upset with other people for them feeling as though that's the only outlet that they have. So that's kind of how I process that portion of it.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It's been a long time, and I didn't start the episode with alright, so I'm feeling good.
I was waiting for it.
I tried really hard. This is episode 9, and we're going to be talking about, I'm going to call this one Tantrums, because I think it's a catchy title.
Yeah.
But we're going to do a 3-part series that is going to be all about KJ's video that she shared with us almost 3 months ago already.
Dude,
like almost
crazy.
Exactly 3 months ago. I didn't realize it till I was rewatching it again.
Wow.
But KJ posted a video in June, kind of a response to everything that was going on with the riots, with the looting, with George Floyd, with just all of what was kicking off this whole, I want to say mess, but that's not the right word. Just everything that's happening. And we're kind of resurrecting the Black Lives Matter, putting some more oomph into it. And really, it was the video that I watched that I was like, all right, I think we can like talk about stuff, and people seem to like what you had to say. So I read every single comment today to like refresh on it, and I think the general consensus was people really enjoyed it.
Every single one? You're crazy.
Yeah, well, I had to like fangirl my fangirl over here, so that's fine. But so what I wanted to do is, in the video, and we will share parts of it for each of the episodes that we film here, but KJ touches on 3 topics. The first one being rioting and looting. I said it right before I said rooting, but that's a different topic. So rioting and looting was one. The second one was about good cop, bad cop kind of concept. And the last one was white privilege. And I think KJ did a really great job of kind of showcasing her good talking and training and just speaking in a way that a lot of people could relate to.
Well, thank you.
And so I just kind of want to deep dive each topic and expand on them because I think people are really interested in what you had to say.
Okay, let's do it.
So that's the hope for today.
Sweet.
So the first one's going to be on the rioting and looting.
Yeah.
And you gave an analogy around temper tantrums.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just hoping you could start by like just recapping kind of what you were saying there as far as what's going on in the world and breaking that down easily for us.
Yeah, well, before I even get into that, just to kind of give people a background of like where my head was at when I made that video, it really was like spur of the moment. During that time, I had so many people reach out to me and were kind of like asking my opinion on stuff and didn't really know how to digest information. And that was kind of a really big deal for our state, right? Just in general. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, but I think that it was really close to home for a lot of people, like in the literal sense, right? Really close to home. And there was kind of a balance. Like there was a mix of people that were quiet about it and didn't really say much. And then there were the people that I feel like jumped right into it right away and were like, this is my opinion on it, this is this and that. And it kind of created this like tiff, which we're in right now just as a society. Mm-hmm. So that day in particular, I was in a group text and then I had like 2 or 3 other people kind of like ask my opinion on it. And I found that I was like answering the same way, but didn't realize that I was answering the same way. So it kind of helped because they were able to help me really kind of think and collect my thoughts and figure out what I liked or didn't like or what I appreciate, didn't appreciate. So that I literally pulled into the parking lot and was like, okay, I'm just gonna like off the cuff, like go off this. So kind of going to the point of what you said, like me being a trainer, the way that I think immediately is like analogies. Mm-hmm. When I'm trying to relate a complex topic or situation, I try to literally make it as easy and as like dummy proof as possible and then expand on it because that's how most people connect with it. So that's just what I did for myself. So I was like, okay, how do I feel about this? Do I kind of understand it? I do. Would I do it? No. So that's where the tantrum came, and it just kind of clicked for me in the sense of like we all can relate to that. Like we've all been a child, and a lot of us are around children or have children. And so I was like, well, when you think about someone who's looking for attention or needs attention, whether it's good or bad, and doesn't necessarily understand how to get that, right, or hasn't been getting that in whatever capacity that is, you lash out, right? I mean, we do it on a day-to-day basis, a daily basis, even when like we're arguing with significant others or brothers or parents or whatever, sometimes we just want people to pay attention to us instead of being like, hey, look at me. Mm-hmm. Or maybe we are doing that and they're still not looking. So that's kind of where the tantrum came from. So to kind of give an example, I know we're going to play it, so I don't want to repeat too much of it, but like the mom, look at me, and then eventually when kids get frustrated, what do? They start breaking stuff, right? They start throwing things. They are the loudest and most extreme version of themselves possible because unfortunately that's how we're conditioned and that's just what we're wired to do. We're wired to look. Mm-hmm. And it's a great segue into everything that's going on now because a lot of people before this didn't even really understand, before, Black Lives Matter, all that stuff like that, people of color, the black community, they have been trying to get people to pay attention. I mean, you can pull historical moments or just like speeches, different activists going back as far as you want to of people very politely trying to be like, hey, the system is corrupt, there's some imbalances, like we need to focus on this, we need to do better here. And unfortunately, it wasn't enough noise, right? It wasn't loud enough, it wasn't extreme enough. And do I think every single person that was looting and rioting, that was their intention? No, but we have extremists on any platform, any group, anything, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're going to have some people that, unfortunately, during these COVID times were unemployed and bored out of their minds, and they saw an opportunity to go down there and muck some stuff up, right? And then you had other people that was their point. Their point was to be like, hey, this is our opportunity to really get people to pay attention. And then you kind of have some people that I think a lot of people don't think about that were kind of the in-between where they've been kicked around, they're down and out, and that was like, this is their one and only opportunity to stick it to the man, right? So you get people that are like, oh, stealing that TV from Target isn't going to get you, justice. But a lot of us are speaking from a perspective that we don't understand, right? Like, if you lived your entire life in poverty and you've never had anything go your way, or you don't have the proper resources or the people around you that can tell you that life can be better, or people that want to represent you or look like you, right, in places of power, sometimes like that is the most satisfying thing for you.
Yeah.
Right? To be like, okay, I make very little difference, because that's how most of those people, I make very little difference, but I've never gotten anything in life, so I'm going to take this TV. This is mine. I'm getting what I'm supposed to have right now.
Right.
And I think some people, it's hard for them to think like that because they've never really needed to be in a situation where they had to think like that.
Right.
So you've kind of got this melting pot of different reasons that people are doing things, but all of it, in some way, whether you understand it or not, has some logic behind it. I don't know how you want to digest that.
No, and I think that was, you know, I said read through all the comments, and there were some mostly positive, a couple comments particularly around this topic. And I think it's important to clarify that I don't think by any means you are condoning rioting and looting. It's like the solution to get attention.
I'm not, and I would, I don't need to wish-wash on that. Like, I'm not condoning it. No.
Like, I mean, it's the unfortunate part of going that extreme is that it can detract from the message, and that's where I think, you know, your tantrum analogy is so great, because they can get destructive, but also they can just get loud. So that's where things like, you know, the protests and the walking and the standing, that was a part of that same movement. And I think it's more important to focus on that, because believe what you want, fake news, real news, like whoever was rioting and looting, like may or may not have been part of the cause,
at all.
Part of the state, part of anything, and may have just been taking advantage. So I think that's just an important distinction. By no means here are we saying, like...
And I think it's important for you to say that, because, like, some of the conversations I was having after I posted the video with people in person, they were saying that it was hard for them to make that distinction. And they didn't really think like that, because their first initial response when they saw the city up in flames, and the police and fire departments and all this stuff, they're like, why would you do this to your own city? And I'm like, well, hold on now, like... Yes, there are people, residents, things like that. I go, but statistically, most places that get burned down, it's actually other people from other cities that are going there and tearing down those cities, and then they leave, right? Nobody really, like, truly wakes up and goes, I'm going to burn down my only grocery store today, right? But I love that you brought that up, because I think that was what helped people really kind of understand to not put those two things on the same platform. Yes, they're happening at the same time, and it is kind of a buzz, you know, word type thing for the media to do, to put rioting and looting and protesting. They like to clump all those things together, but that missed the point. And a lot of people were actually trying to peacefully protest, were trying to, you know, get their voices heard, have their signs, do what they need to do, march, and then the aftermath of everything kind of silenced them. Right? And then that's where most people hop on and they go, well, see what you did? Like, that doesn't make any sense to loot and riot, because now your message wasn't heard. But it's like, don't put those two categories together, because most of the time they're not meant to be the same thing. They just happen to coincide when there's a lot of animosity in that area.
A lot of angst built up there. And that's part of what I thought, coming back to this video, why it was so relevant now is because of the stuff happening in Wisconsin now, and we're seeing it. I mean, it never really went away completely, but it's kind of, the tantrum is up and down a little bit. You know, the kids are, you know, okay, mommy's listening, just kidding, no they're not, like, keep going. So that's why I think it's important to just bring up again that it's, what's happening is not directly connected. Yes, same time, yes, some of the same people, and yes, honestly, if it gets the point across, like, not condoning,
you
like
get
setting
it, though,
something
like,
on
you
fire.
Understand, like,
but if it gets the right attention albeit for the wrong reason, it can still get us somewhere. And so that's kind of why I thought it was relevant to bring up again. And I was thinking about your analogy of, like, in your video you talk about the mommy, and of course I'm thinking, like, what is it, a Family Guy? Like,
mom.
All I can think of is this analogy. But I was starting to think about, like, all right, the tantrum, and when I first saw the video, I was like, all right, Minneapolis was the tantrum. Done. Like, now we're paying attention, the tantrum's over. Now, like I said, 3 months later, it's still relevant, there's still tantrums, and it kind of feels like, why isn't it over yet? Like, shouldn't mom, like, get a grip on this kid by now? Like, can we just call it quits? And so I was trying to, like, put into perspective, like, the timing of this tantrum. Because it feels like 3 months later, we could be having some calmer conversations. You had your time out, what have you.
Yeah.
But I started thinking, like, in the video you said, the first one is just mom. And that's, like you said, we can look back historically and see we've been doing some things, there have been some activities, and there's been tantrums up and down in the past. We've talked about those in previous episodes. But I started thinking, like, when you look at that first phase of trying to get mom's attention, it's like 20 to 40 years.
Oh, yeah.
So, like...
Oh, yeah.
In the context of what's happening right now, like, it was a long time.
Correct.
So to have 3 months of the...
Yeah.
Isn't that long.
No, in perspective to, like, it's like when you tried to get your mom to look in your direction, like, and she finally looked, that's a long time.
That was a long time. Like, she's turning her head.
Yep.
And then I was like, you talk about, like, the phase 2 is, like, the more panicked, like, okay, mom. And I was like, you know, that's probably been, like, the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Where we started to see, you know, the kneeling in the NFL and some of the other, you know, what's the word called? Police brutality stuff happening. Like, it's been more of a conversation the last probably 5 to 10 years. We probably didn't go that far.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, we should have known that, like, we're getting there, guys.
The temp is boiling.
Like, Black Lives Matter, I don't know exactly how long that, like, hashtag's been around, but it's been probably 5 years or so.
I believe so. I don't know. Yeah, I'll check into it, but I don't know exactly. But yeah.
Is there a Wikipedia page on, like, BLM?
Oh, I'm sure.
Probably.
There's a Wikipedia page on anything.
If not, we'll start it. I will not start. I don't know enough to start.
I don't even know how to make a Wikipedia page.
I don't either. All I know is if it's about you, you can't write it or edit it.
Get out.
No, because you can't, like, skew the page.
Huh.
Yeah, learn something new.
Wow.
Anyways, so I was thinking, like, the last 5 years has been, like, that, like, growing panic. And then, like, honestly, George Floyd was, like, the fuck it, mom, pay attention.
Slam my fire truck.
Yeah. And
roll my teddy bear.
And it was such a... And that's exactly what that was like. I slammed my foot, I went upstairs, and I slammed my door. I mean, to watch the video of what happened, like, you... I don't care what color you are, what you feel about anything, to sit there and watch a man die.
Oh, I didn't watch it.
It better hurt you.
I couldn't do it.
It's not...
so many people were like, have you seen it? Oh. And
it
I was
took
like...
me a long time.
I couldn't do it. I still haven't. I refused. I just couldn't bring myself to do it.
Because you don't want to watch somebody die, or because you don't want to see, like, the whole setting?
All of it. All of it. Like, I can't emotionally bring myself to do it right now.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah. I don't know. I can't peel back the layers and tell you why, but I just, like, I can't do it.
Okay, we'll peel back those layers.
Yeah, someday, but, like, I'm just...
We're gonna get a certified therapist here to do that, but I'm not.
Talk to somebody. Yeah, I won't do it. Like, I just can't. But yeah, like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, like...
No, I was just, like, thinking that, like, you know, I don't care where you come from. Like, watching somebody die better hit you in the feels.
Man.
Or y'all need a therapist. That's something you gotta talk out.
You're like Jeffrey Dahmer or something. Crazy. Like, got problems.
So that's just kind of, and I started to think about, like, so that's what I was trying to, like, rationalize in my head, is just the timing, because it does feel like, it's kind of like when you're having a long day, like 15 minutes feels like forever, and that's kind of, we're having a long year. Like, this year sucks in every way. And so now you add in, like, a few months of this, and you're just like, for the love of God, can it be over?
Yeah, well, there's a really good point, like, because we've been, in most cases, kind of, like, cut off from, like, our reality, right? Other than social media, other than, like, the news, other than, like, all the narratives that people are trying to push on us, and not necessarily the truth, right? Because we understand how, most people understand how news stations work. They're bought out, right? So their news is biased in general, and depending on local news and, right, you know, all that stuff. But we've kind of been, because of COVID, we've been so stagnant that, like, the concept of time for us is insane. Like, it feels like one day feels like an eternity. So it's such an interesting combination of everything that's going on, because I feel like this would have happened last year. 2019, for most people, 2019 was a normal year. Right? And for some people, it was even a thriving year. Right? If this would have happened, I don't think that we would feel so, like, man, as we do now, because it's just so much, and that, like, elongated feeling of, like, 3 months, because the last 3 months have felt like 3 years for most people, just without even racial injustice, right?
Oh, exactly.
Just in general. So it's like, it's just a lot, whereas I feel like even, like, 2018 or, you know, whatever, pick a year, other than 2008, it would, I feel like, almost still have its spark and have its fire, and I don't think people would be so burnt out by it because that would be their focus. That would be the thing that we're like paying attention to.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's like what I was thinking is like, there's almost so many tantrums being thrown right now between, you know, politics, like whatever way you feel like that's a tantrum.
Yeah.
You know, we were just talking about the sex trafficking for children and things like that is like a quieter tantrum, and however you feel about that or whatever you believe about that, but like there's some noise around that. There's, you know, just everything from the lockdowns, how you feel about COVID, how you...
Masks, right? Like, people, like, politicize wearing masks. Like,
exactly. So it's like there's just so many tantrums that this one, and what we'll talk about is the third part of the series when you talk about what we can do.
Sure.
And I was just trying to think, like, you know, here's what you could do, and here's what we should be doing, and we talked about that in some of our first episodes. Like, what can we do? Just listen, be calm, engage, what have you, be open to change and conversation. And it's like in a year where most people are just trying to like pay a bill, not kill their child.
They're
like,
literally surviving. People are surviving right now.
Like how many memes are out there right now where like, it's okay if all you did today was make it.
Yeah,
you know?
For real.
And so it feels like to put this like, oh, also don't forget to not be racist, care about black people, you know, make sure that they have opportunity. It's like, just not today.
Yeah. Which is interesting, like, I know we'll get into it, but, like, that moves into the kind of the second part of everything, which I won't, like, jump into. But, yeah, I think what we have to do is we have to remind ourselves of the tantrum. Like, the tantrum is the tantrum, and it will last as long as it needs to. And I think that that's something that we as, like, human beings do. We just kind of, like, we become desensitized to stuff. And that's what almost sparks the tantrums happening again, because we're just like, oh, I see you, okay, cool. Oh, there you are again, right?
Right.
And it's hard to be mindful, right? To be actively thinking, like, am I paying attention? Because there's a lot of stuff to pay attention to. Like, the world is stimulating, and I feel like now more than ever people are overstimulated because all most people are doing these days is staring at some sort of, like, screen. Right? And between the algorithms on your whatever Instagram account or your Facebook account, like, you go on Facebook and it's like this thing, right? And you go on Instagram and it's like this thing, and then you go over to Twitter and it's like this thing. So it's like it's hard to prioritize all that stuff. So then when you do see one of those tantrums, it is really easy for you to be like, again? But it's like it didn't go away. You've just been like platform jumping, and like different things have been popping up for you that are different than other people, right?
Right.
So I think it's tough because I feel like when people have watched that video, they understand it better, but that doesn't mean that it's easily digestible.
Right. Well, I think that that's something that, you know, when we first started this, you were talking about like how excited you were about how this could be the start of change.
Yeah.
How we think that, you know, this could be more than just symbolic changes. And my fear is that this could get lost in the tantrum that is 2020. That all of a sudden Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd and everything that's happening is just another thing that happened in 2020.
Interesting.
So,
I didn't think about that.
It's just kind of like, again, where we're just trying to survive.
That's
it's
a good point, though.
You know, we could just get desensitized to it, and we'll talk about it later about, you know, just kind of looking away from it, and like, I don't have the energy or the capacity to worry about you. Yeah. So I have to worry about me or this or the one thing that I've decided to commit my energy to. Yeah. And so I think what I was just kind of coaching myself on was like, how can I be a part of it, but maybe a smaller part? Like, this just isn't the year that I can, you know, go protesting on the weekends and go, you know, join all these groups, but like, can I do these podcasts with you a couple times a month? Can I have a conversation, or to be, aware of who's around me at any given point? Like, right. Yeah. You know, I'm probably not gonna like join a political team and try and like write a bill or something this year, because you're not. It's just, you know, maybe I'm thinking next year. I did see a couple people in the comments were voting you for president. For the record, you have to be 35.
Yeah, not even old enough.
We have a couple years before we dynamic duo that one.
Ooh,
that'd be pretty chill. Come on.
Wow. I'd come out with all the gray hairs.
I'd get all the wrinkles. You could have the gray hairs.
All the gray hairs.
I stress eat too much. That would not be good for either of us.
Oh, man.
But
I think I'm too lax for the White House.
Would you go to the Black House?
Oh, I mean, I would do that. It'd be kind of different.
I mean, I just like black way better than white anyways.
Yeah, I'm down with that. The mixed house.
Yeah, there we go. We'll split it in half.
Mm-hmm.
Look at us. Compromise. See, guys?
Would you look at it?
Would you look at... So that was just kind of... I was trying to coach myself. Like, what are smaller things that I can do? And, you know, even podcasting can be time. So what can people do on a smaller scale? And I don't have that answer. It's just kind of like, be kind to yourself. I mean, even just listening to these podcasts, as like intelligent as we are, you know, hopefully it's that just a little seed that we can help plant, or that question that we can ask or go over.
Definitely.
Can be something in your life that you just take away. It's like, hey, I can do that.
Well, and I think it's important for people to understand that, like, you don't have to have all the answers and you don't have to understand everything, but you do need to try, right? And yeah, not to like put our podcast or anything on a pedestal, but like you try to take as much information in from different types of people as possible, right? Because as we spoke about in previous episodes, some people don't have the diverse local group, right? Like some people just aren't surrounded by enough people of color, or even if you do have people of color, you're not different enough from each other, right? To get those perspectives. And sometimes it's just exhausting to have intellectual conversations all the time, but it's a really easy passive way to like listen to someone else have an intellectual conversation. Because like you say, you might pick up something and you go, oh, I didn't think like that, or oh, that really solidifies this thought that I had, but I just didn't know how to say it. But yeah, not to get too far into like what you can do, but to really kind of drive in that point. I'm not into rioting or looting, and if something ever happened in St. Paul instead of Minneapolis, like, you know, that was something that I actually struggled with a lot in the beginning. You know, being a person of color, being somebody who should be, you know, really involved in the movement, I didn't know what to do. And so actually, and this brings me back to a point, like in the previous part of the video, why I even made the video, because a lot of people were getting bashed for being silent, right? That was a really big thing right away, where people were like, your silence is like compliance and blow, and it's like, that's not true. Like, sometimes people just need to digest information, and I'm one of those people. Like, I don't know what the term's called, but I'm definitely like an introverted extrovert. Like, I need to internalize stuff and like process it on my own, and then I'll talk about it all day long, but I don't like to just talk right away. And so that's what a lot of people were doing, myself included, and I kind of took that a little personal, because I'm like, before I even said it, I don't even know how many days it was that had passed before I even made that video, and I hadn't talked to really anybody other than the people that reached out to me about it. And that was forced conversation, which I don't want anybody to feel bad and like they made me, like, it was good because it helped me kind of process my own thoughts, but I didn't speak about anything because I didn't know how I felt. And I think people need to know now more than ever, it's okay to not know. Like, how you feel, what you think, what you thought was to be true, right? And it's such a confusing time for people, like, identifying who they are. And then on top of that, you're trying to support an entire, you know, group of people, and you actually don't really even fully understand yourself. And I don't feel like enough people are talking about that. And that was something for me right away that took, I kind of went back and forth with that, because I'm like, am I being black enough? Like, it was like that black guilt, right? Like, am I a part of the group enough? Like, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I, you know, am I going to get in trouble for not saying anything? Are people waiting for me to talk? Like, I don't know. Like, am I important? And that's kind of a lot of what I feel like my white friends and colleagues in general, they don't speak because they don't feel like they're important enough. Like, well, I'm not black, so I can't say anything. You can. You can say whatever you want. But I encourage you to think about it first. Right? Maybe gather some information to kind of back what you're thinking. Or just simply say, here's an idea that I have, and I'm not married to it, but here's what it is. And so, you know, I was telling you earlier, I was listening to Joe Rogan's podcast, which I listen to frequently, because I just like the way that he thinks. He recently said that people right now are married to their ideas. Ideas that, in most cases, aren't even their own ideas. Right? But, like, our ideas have become our character. And then when you attack an idea, now you're attacking my character. And that's not the case. So, like, the Tantrums, for example, any rooting, like, writing and rooting,
you're welcome,
rubbing off on me. People, they feel so personally attacked. And it's like, this isn't about you. And I think if you can really stop and think about that, it's not to be mean, and it's not because I'm calling you a narcissist, but, like, it's not about you. Like, remind yourself, like, why am I so upset right now? When someone goes downtown and busts out the windows at Target and takes a bunch of TVs, like, why are you so personally mad about that?
Because they got to it first.
Yeah, right? Yeah, but, like, think about it and stop and go, okay, am I married to my idea of what that means, right? Or is it too closely tied to my character as a person? Well, I would never do that. So it's like, okay, I wouldn't do it either, but you didn't see me keyboard warring on everybody that was down there like, how dare you, right? So I think that when we look at the tantrums, when we look at the rioting, we look at the looting, we look at the protesting, we look at everything, no matter how long this process is going to be, it might be another decade before any actual change happens. Instead of being married to the ideas of, I wouldn't do that or I would handle it this way, why don't you take a look at yourself and figure out, do you actually fully understand your identity and where you stand and why you stand that way or why you have such strong emotions about certain things? And can you kind of do what I did in a sense, take some time and go, okay, I think this is what they mean. Right? And then just be okay with it. Right? Because like we stated earlier, I would never, I'm not one to go down and do that, nor am I really one to go protest. I don't feel like that's my calling. Like, that's not the thing I'm supposed to do. And so I struggle with that because I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing enough. But like this right now, this is what I felt like I needed to do. But yeah, I was like, this is that thing. This is what I'm supposed to do. And whether you figure that out or not is okay. But going back to the video, we need to do more processing. I think we really just need to get to the root of why people do things and understand why someone does something before we comment on it.
No, and I think that is such an important distinction for people. It's like, it's okay to process. Like, being silent is okay. And just engaging in some way. And that's, I mean, we've talked about part of what my role will be in this podcast is, from a white person, like, I'm sorry, I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. Or like, hey, y'all are like setting my city on fire. Like, knock it off, you know? And to be vulnerable to ask those questions. So whether what you do is just reaching out to us and helping me be that person in this conversation, kind of like the one last episode, the N-word, like, I don't get it. I still don't. Like, I left that episode, and I think at the very end, we kind of just stared at each other, like, are we good? And we're like, yeah, okay, that was it. Like, I still don't really get it.
I feel like we should do a part 2 on that. I had a lot of people go, I still have more questions. And I was like, okay. Yeah. It's an evolving thing. Like, that's such an interesting, I mean, not to digress from what we're talking about, but all of this is such an evolving thing, right? And like you said, we talked about it earlier, you said it downstairs, like, well, my role is this. I'm like, well, your role is ever changing, and I think depending on what it is we're talking about, like, there are some things that I kind of rely on you or lean on you because I'm like, I don't know. I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to say. Like.
No, I just think that that's what I can do, and this is to, you know, and that's, you called yourself an introverted extrovert.
Yeah.
I call myself an extroverted introvert. I think there's a difference.
I feel like there is. I think there's a name for it, too.
I think there is, like, a whole lot of scientific things behind that, but, like, in general, like, I would prefer to be alone or processing, but I'm very uncomfortable with silence, which encourages me to be extroverted more often, so I tend to be somebody who speaks out my thoughts to figure them out.
Sure.
So what was interesting to me with this whole situation was I didn't talk about it at all, and I know you said, like, you know you have to go process. I know I process by talking. So when I wasn't talking about it, I was like, I'm not processing it. And, you know...
Way to recognize that about yourself.
Though. Well, and it was really, I think my first text to you was like, I honestly don't know what to say. I hope you're good. If you need me, call. Like, that was pretty much it, right? I was like, I don't know. And you can go out and people have these thoughts, are so quick to jump to these opinions, or... You know, I think people rely on social media because there's always somebody who articulated it better, and then you can associate with that great thought, whether or not it was yours. And
it's real.
I think that's what this could be a platform for. So if you have questions, if you have things that can be this just vulnerable discussion and show that, again, we've said it before, rational people can have rational conversations. It's this crazy thing where you don't have to, like, black or white every conversation.
What?
Just your black and white thoughts. So I was thinking a little bit about with this tantrum concept here. I was thinking about like what led to it. And I know we talked about like the growing unrest over the last few years, 2020 being a total crap show. And then I was thinking about the concept of that, or the role that our leadership is playing, and how it's funny that probably 2-3 years ago I was talking about with my dad. Actually, no, it was before Trump was elected. This is not a political stance, just so we're very clear. When I was arguing with my dad about Trump, because for the record, I'm not his biggest fan, I was like, this guy's an idiot. Like, he just talks loud, and like, what can he do for us? And my dad was like, yeah, he's an idiot that talks loud, but if he talks about the right things, he might make enough noise to get shit done. And I was kind of like, alright,
that makes sense.
I can get on board with that. Unfortunately, I don't know that he has talked about the right thing, and that's where I say maybe I'm not his biggest fan. But I also think he's created a culture where talking loud and stupidly is okay.
Okay.
And so that's where I feel like, actually, it's so funny today. I was reading a little snippet of NPR had, Trump went to North Carolina and said, to avoid any issues with voting, vote once by mail and once in person. And then it ended with, that's a felony by North Carolina law. So I showed it to a coworker and I was like, so if my president tells me to do it, like, is it a get out of jail free card,
Yeah, gosh, if you're not watching this video, my face, like, I can't even reenact it. Like, as soon as you said it, I was just like, what?
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. So for the record, don't vote twice. That's that's not a surefire way of making your vote count. It's probably a surefire way to make sure your vote doesn't count, to be honest.
Don't do that.
But, so it was kind of one of those, like, that's the epitome of, my opinion, of Trump, is that he speaks loudly about stupid things. And not to say that these topics are stupid, but he's just created a culture where people can say things or get married to their thoughts so quickly. And if I say it loud enough and with a funny enough meme and a, attention-grabbing video, then I can say whatever the hell I want, and here I am.
Yeah.
And that's where I wonder if some people are connecting what's happening with the rioting and looting with that. That, like, hey, you guys are just talking loud about nonsense because I'm white and I can't relate. And we will talk about white privilege in 2 episodes.
Oh.
And that's topic number 3 in KJ's video.
I love that I find out when you guys find out. This is great. Surprise.
She found out like 10 minutes before I started filming.
They sure did.
But shame. So I was just thinking, like, are we seeing this and associating it with just like more loud noise and not giving it the weight that it deserves?
Yeah. I like that. That is such a valid point, and I wish I had a better response other than to be like, yeah, what's a good point?
Well, I don't know if there's even a question there. It's just kind of like,
it's a great observation because it feels right. Like, and I guess I never really looked at him like that, but yeah, he is good at being loud, right? And then it's like we're so used to the noise that everything sounds like noise. Ooh.
Well, it's so much these days. Everybody's shouting. Everybody's shouting about something.
Oh,
I mean, that's what Facebook is. It's
I'm
you
probably
the
shouting into this
post.
mic right now. I don't even know.
I mean, our podcast is shouting. It's a version of shouting. But I was just like, there's still, everything that's being shouted still has a point.
Yeah.
So if you can get past the noise and the bird people are flipping you when they're shouting, like, it's still coming from an important place. And so just take it for what it's worth. See the message without the volume.
Yeah, well, to bring it full circle, everybody is having their own tantrum. Figuring out why is what we need to do a better job at.
So my last question, as far as this tantrum analogy, is do you think there comes a point where, I think my exact word was like, why hasn't mom gotten a grip yet? Like, is there a point where, like, as a community that is speaking loudly and tantruming about Black Lives Matters and the equality issues, where that group is going to have to be like, hey guys, like, let's take those deep breaths, let's go sit with mom on the couch and, like, talk this out? Like, is there a point where, like, it's not going to be impactful anymore?
I don't think so. I think a tantrum just is always impactful. Breaking things and being really loud, that's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there is going to reach a point where mom and the world are going to have to sit down and have a conversation. But unfortunately, it's up to mom to want to have that conversation. It's up to mom to want to make those changes. And mom is the figurative meaning of whoever's in charge. Whoever's running our country and actually wants to pay attention, right? And wants to actually make the changes inside of the system that people are talking about. Things that we've brought up a million times where we're like, stop putting a Band-Aid,
Right.
On heart surgery, right? But it's up to mom. Because as the child, air quotes, the child only does the tantrum because the mom or the dad or whoever, the parent is not paying attention. So when mom does more than goes, knock it off, be quiet, and actually walks over and goes, okay, let's talk about this. What's wrong? Why are you upset? Why are you mad? What can I do? Then it's going to continue.
Sure.
But it's in mom's hands, I think.
So, Mom, listen up.
Yeah, mom.
We got shit to say.
For reals. Mom.
I'm gonna end the video with mom. Well, that's all I had on that topic, unless you have any final parting comments.
No, part 1.
Attention.
Done.
Sweet. Thanks, y'all. Do the social media stuff.
Oh, thank you. Yep, we got a website, blackandwhitethoughts.com. Go check it out. You can watch our podcast there. You can listen to it pretty much wherever you listen to podcasts. We've got information about us. We post informational stuff. So anything that is related to any previous podcasts that we talk about, or any videos or literature that we reference, we always put it up there so you can look at it yourself. So it's more like an educational place that you can also see our faces.
Thanks.
Thanks, bye.